Good afternoon.
Maurice, I think we didn't send out a Zoom link. So what I want to do is to see if I can send out, because you had the flyer. I think just people wouldn't have read the flyer. Let me go ahead and make sure that we have invite participants.
Put the link in the
Let me go ahead and,
Hello, everyone.
hello, Carlos. I won't be here long. I'll just wait to make sure you can get in. That's all.
By the way, Maurice, now that you're here, before you go, can you help me to share the notebook by email? I'm gonna share it anyway on the chat, in the chat. But if you can help me sharing the,
Email it to me.
let me see, hold on. Do you want me to send you by email?
Yes, please.
Okay. We're not putting in the chat.
Fine. I'll send it out.
Hello, everyone. So let's wait a few more minutes to see if we can have more attendance, and then we can start working on the introduction to Python. Hello, everyone. So let's see if we can start the workshop. So the workshop today, guys, is focused on introduction to Python. So we are going to work on basic operation in Python, how we can manipulate data with data frame, and how we can build a control statement. So we are going to work with if, else statement, elif statement to build a control sequence in our Python code. We are going to see how we can print variables using the format functions that is in Python. And at the end, we are going to work with data frame, which is one of the main packages to manipulate our data. And we will see some mainly operations to manipulate the data with Python with a very simple example. So let's start. To start working on our workshop today, guys, I share with you on the chat. There is a Google Colab notebook. So we are going to work and go through that notebook to complete some code. And as I mentioned, there are basic code to have a knowledge how to work with Python. And, you know, if you have any questions, you can just let me know. You can raise your hand or type it In the chat here, we have also Dr. Parra Bautista. He's also helping us with the workshop today. And Dr. Liu, so will be helping us answering the questions in the chat if you have any. Let me know if you can see the link, the Google Colab link in the chat. Also, Maurice sent you a few minutes ago the link by email, so you can go through, go into your email and see and have access to the Jupyter Notebook. So don't start working on the Jupyter Notebook because that is a share file. So if you do any modification on it, it will be reflected on others. So what we're going to do is do a copy of that. Each of you will do a copy of that Jupyter Notebook, and you are going to, in the title, we are going to do our name, and then we can start working and do any modification on that Jupyter Notebook. In that way, we are sure that nobody else is overwriting others' work. Okay, let's start. I'm gonna share my screen. Let me go. That is number 3. Yes, I'm gonna share it. And again, guys, if you don't have access to the Google Colab, please let me know, and I can share it with you again on the chat. Okay, let's start working on a notebook. Are you ready, guys? Or do you need more time to open the Google Colab? So remember to open the Google Colab is the same process that we did, that actually Dr. Parra showed us the last time. So let me go pretty quick here. I'm gonna do in Google, you can do Google Colab. Or even, I think that if you click in the link that I share with you, it will send you to the notebook directly. So here is the Google Colab. You can actually do a file, and if you download the file, you can upload it from here if you download it. But because I share with you the link, it should send you directly to the notebook, to this notebook right here. So I just want to make sure that all of you have received the notebook before to start working on the notebook. Yes.
It's hard to fit everything on the same screen.
Oh, what was that?
Oh, it's hard to fit everything on the same screen. Just trying to fit everything. Notes and then Zoom and
yeah. I can wait for you. Yeah, I do. So I share again. Let me share it to the whole group. The link is in the chat. The link for the Google Colab is in the chat. So you can click on that one and it will send you directly to this page right here, Introduction to Python. So just to make sure again, before you start doing any modification, what we're gonna do is a copy of this file that will help us to create our own copy And so let me show you how to do a copy of this file. Once you open the Jupyter Notebook, we are going to go to File and save a copy in Drive, okay? We're gonna click it there, and you will see the new copy will be generated, right? So this is the original one, and you will generate a copy. So in the copy, you can rename the title. You can change the title here, faculty name. I will do my name, Carlos Herrera. Okay, that's my name. And what we are going to be covering today is we are going to see how to use Jupyter Notebook in Google Colab that you already have, you know, those ones that attended the first workshop, the first sections with Dr. Parra. He introduced how to use Jupyter Notebook. We are going to see how to use the print functions and how to use the format functions inside the print functions. We are going to work with some variables, how we can create variables in the Jupyter Notebooks, in particular, how we can define variables in Python. We are going to work with two, as an example, we are going to work with two types of variable, integers and string variables. Creating and printing variables. We are going to, we are not going to concatenate. What we are going to do is use the format function for the print function. Then we are going to work with the control statement or statement control with the if, else, and elif function, statement control. And finally, at the end, we are going to work with the pandas, which is a particular data structure that we use for data management. In this section, in this part, we are going to create a data frame from a dictionary, which is also another data structure. The dictionary, we will see some basic operations to manipulate the data frames and the information stored in the data frame, selecting and filtering the data, modifying and updating the data, and how to handle missing values in our data. So this is going to be a pretty simple example just to have a knowledge how we can work with the pandas instead of working with a huge CSV file. This is going to be a simple files that will help us to understand how we can manipulate data using pandas and data frame, okay? So let's start. The idea is to get familiar with the Google Colab. Some of you already are familiar with the Google Colab and using the print statement, variables, data type, data frame, and working with some variables. So that's what we're gonna do. So the first things that we will do, that maybe you already did, is change the name, the title for our Jupyter Notebook. So in this case, remember the file that I shared with you all was this one, Introduction to Python, faculty name. I asked you to save a copy in Drive, right? And then that will give you a new Jupyter Notebook. In this Jupyter Notebook, you will change the name and you can put your name here, right? That way you can identify the file. So that's the first step. That's the first things that we will do today, just to change the title of this file. And how we can create a new cell in Jupyter Notebook. So when we stand in the cell here, you will see that it will pop up these two options. We can create a new cell for coding or a new cell for test. The new cell for test is usually created to do any comments on your code or to explain what the following section of your code is doing. So that is the text option. In the code, if you click here in code, it will give you, right, the new cell where we can, for example, print. Let's just print a string that say hello world. So that's the way that we can add more cell in our Jupyter Notebook, okay? There is another option to do that. Well, it's connecting.
Sorry, this is Neil. Can you go over this one more time? The how to create a new text cell?
Yes, sure.
Thank you.
I'm gonna just delete it to start with this one. Okay. There's two ways that we can add a new cell in Jupyter Notebook, right? These cells right here, if you do click, you can see like there is some shadow, right? That we are selecting that cell. If we move close to the bottom of that cell, it will pop up these two options. These first options right here, if you click on that one, it will give you a new cell for text. So that means that you can do some comments, or you can type, like, for example, if you are implementing a function, you can explain what that function does, the number of parameters, and the requirement of that function. So that is this option right here, add text. For example, I'm just gonna click in here. I'm gonna click and I will add a text cell. Actually, I was skipping this one. This is a text cell. For example, here, I just gonna do here. You can add comments to explain your code, right? So this is what you will see once you click outside that cell. The format that this particular text use, the format, it actually works with a markdown syntax. Markdown syntax is those syntax that help you to provide some kind of format to your text. For example, if I do this, let me show you this. I'm gonna click outside. If I click outside, this is what I actually added, right? This is the new cell. Here you can add comments to explain your code. Now, I'm gonna edit that cell. To edit that cell, I'm gonna do double click, and now we can work on it. So when I was talking about this text use a markdown syntax, for example, if I wanna set that as a title, I'm gonna do an ampersand, a numerical symbol. And I'm gonna click outside, you see, now it's bigger and it's like a heading, it's a heading for in my file. So if I do two more, that will be like a subtitle. You see, the size of the font change. So let's say that I wanna do some bullets. Here, I do the start. Here, I can add a few more comments. And now that will be a bullet. Okay. So just in case, if you want to, you know, set some format for your test, keep it in mind that that is a markdown syntax, markdown. If you do markdown guide, let's see. Let me share with you a good tutorial for the markdown. I think that this basic syntax. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. You see, the heading, the font size. So this is the markdown. If you want to do a title, a subtitle in your text, this is the syntax that you need to follow. If you want to set bold, for example, let me go back. I want to set as a this part right here as a bold. So I just do double star at the first and double star at the end of the comment, and then it will be bold. But that is what is known as a markdown syntax. So let me share with you this link. I will paste it in the chat, and you can have it there, and you can, you know, do some formatting to your text. There it is. So you can keep the syntax if you want to play with the providing some formats to your test. So this is the way that we can add a new cell for text. Now let's add a new cell for coding. So the problem 1.3 is asking us to add a new cell for coding. So here you have the options. You can click here and it will add a new cell for coding, or up here you see we have the same option. So if I click in here, it will actually create a new cell, right? A new cell for coding. So here we can do print just to test it. Hello world. Now, this is a code. How we can run that code, just clicking, doing click here, and it will say hello world, right? So here is the way that we can add a new cell. It could be for text or for coding. So we have those two options, okay? Now, problem 1.4 is how to run a cell coding. So it's the same thing that I showed you here before. We just can do clicking here, or we can do command enter. If you do command enter, of course, first you need to click inside the cells that you want to run. And then you can do command enter and it will run it for you. Or you can just, use the button, the play button, and it will run the code that is inside that cell. Questions so far? Okay, so now let's use the print function. So we want to print, right, what our variables, the value that our variable have. It could be a data frames, it could be just a simple variable, it could be an integer, a float, a string. So let's see how we can actually print the information in Python. So to print the value that a variable contains, we can do the print, we have to do the print function. Okay, we can do the print function. With the print functions, inside the parentheses, you will type or do the variable that you want to print. In this case, we are printing directly the message. So in this case, we have this message right here. I will learn the basic skills to implement a ML system, a machine learning system. So in this case, we have just the string variable is already inside the print function, right? So print parentheses, and remember that it needs to be with inside the quotes. If I take those quotes out, I will get an error, right? Because what I'm printing here is a text. Every time that you want to print a text, you need, or a string, we need to do double quote. So we'll do the double quote and then we will be fine. We are going to print I will learn the basic skill to implement a ML system. Okay. So now let's practice with this one. In this part right here, what we are going to do is we are going to, we will introduce ourselves in the first line, in the first part right here. And in the second part, you can do the department that you are working, at the ones that you're working. So for example, in my case, let me take this out. Complete the code. Remember, it's a text. So I just gonna do the double quote. Assistant professor. And my name is Carlos Terra, for example. The department in the second line, I will do the double quote. And in here, for example, I will do, I'm working at the CIS department. Okay. So we are using 2 lines. We are printing, I'm assistant professor, and my name is Carlos Teran, and I'm working at the CIS department. Okay, so this is just to be practicing and getting familiar with the notebook, how we can run a cell, and how we can use the print function. Okay. The second one, complete the code by printing your age. I'm gonna, again, remember, I'm gonna do, let me show you a different way, because I want to print an integer, a numerical value, because I wanna do a numerical value. What we can do is, there is 2 ways to actually complete this problem. The first problem is, let's say that I have 66, and it will print it, right? This is a whole string value. But if I want to treat the 66 as a number, I can do comma and then 66. Okay? So here, this is actually a numerical value. So here, I'm printing a string value followed by a numerical value. Okay? That's what we are doing here. I'm printing a string value followed by a numerical value. Or, because we can actually do this, my name is, and then 66. My age is 66, or we can do 66 as a numerical value and it will work, okay? So the second problem is complete the code by printing your age on the next line. So in this case, we'll do print and 56, right? We are printing the same line, but in using two different print functions in 2 different lines. So let's practice this one more time. So here, I want to do print, and I want to write here my favorite animal. I will do my favorite animal are dogs. Okay. That is one more example to practice the print function, how we can print a string variable, which is this one right here, and how to run a cell, okay? So now let's move to the part number 3, variables and data types. Let's see, let me see if there is any questions. No. Okay. So for this part, we are going to manipulate now variables. So that means that instead of printing, or instead defining the string variable inside the print functions, what we're gonna do is we will define a variable that will store the string information, and then we are going to use that variable and use it inside the print function. So that's what we're gonna do in the problem 3.1.1. For example, here, we are defining or declaring a variable, or is also called an identifier. Okay, sometimes it's called a variable or identifier. So we have the PD, and in here, what we are going to print is introduction to Python, right? So this is my string variable, introduction to Python. And in the print functions, I will do PD. I will do pretty, I will print it, and here is the information, right? So now I'm not printing the string directly or not using it directly in my print function. Instead, I'm declaring a new variable, and then that variable is used inside the print function, okay? And that is actually the way that we used to do coding. Let's move to the problem 3.1.2. So here what we're gonna do is we're going to create a variable. We are going to name that variable as age, and we are going to assign to that variable an integer value. And then,
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Dr. Turan. May I
Yes.
ask a question, please?
yes, sure.
Yeah, so this PD which you introduced for print, is this something random or is this something specifically related to print? So when you want to print, you have to use PD. Can I use MD or NC, something else?
Yes, that's a good question. Yes, you can do anything, any other name. Like for example, my underscore variable.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can name your variable as you want,
Mm-hmm.
but we have to be careful the way that we name the variables because there are some restrictions. For example, for example, if you see, I use an underscore right here, right?
Recording in progress.
If I take this out, it won't work.
Oh.
It won't work. So there are some rules in order to define a variable. Like for example, this is one of the rules that the variable cannot be composed from, of two different words. Okay, cannot be composed of two different words. So if I want to use two different words, I need to make sure that they need to be they need to be connected. Okay, in this case, I'm using the underscore. So the variables cannot be defined with spaces, with the spaces because it won't work. I think that the second rule is that we cannot start with numerical values. So for example, two variables, so it won't work. So we cannot start the name of a variable with a numerical value because it won't work. So what we can do is a variable underscore 2. Now it will work. Now it will be accepted by the Python interpreter. It will be accepted. I think that I cannot use, yes, I cannot use a particular specific characters, like for example, the exclamation character, we cannot use it to declare a variable, okay? We have just to make sure those rules in order to define the name of a variable. Yes. That was a good question. Thanks, Dr. Nelly.
Okay, thank you very much.
But yes, we can name our variables. Complete the code below, create a variable called age. So in this case, we are going to call it age equals to, we want to assign a numerical values. Let's do 12. And now let's print this variable. We're gonna print it. And in here, instead of doing 12, I'm gonna do the name of my variable, which will be age. And I'm gonna print it, and it will print the value that is contained in my age variable, okay? Let's move to the problem 3.1.3. In this case, we have to create a variable, and we are going to name the variable my underscore department, and we are going to assign a string to that one, right? Well, my underscore department and you can do the department name, and let's run it. Okay, so far, the difference from this set of problems with problems three is that we are now defining variables, right? To store information, we are defining variable to store values. In this case, we were storing most of those examples, we were storing string values, strings. Now, there is, I may say, a more efficient way to print more than one value or more than one variable using the print function. And actually, I use it a lot. I use the format function. Format is a function in Python that helps us to print more than one variable in one print function. Okay, how that works? Okay, so here we have my name. This is the name of my variable. So in my name, I will do my name. Because that is a string, we need to do the double quote. Double quote, I wanna do Carlos Terán. Okay, Carlos Terán. Now the print function, if you see the print function has this first part right here, hello, comma, and then is followed by some curly brackets. We have some curly brackets here, which is actually empty, right? So once we run the code, if I run the code, these curly brackets will be replaced by the value of this variable right here. So in my case, these curly brackets will be replaced by Carlos Terán. Okay, so that is the way that the format function works. So if I run it, it will be hello. If you see in the code, is followed by the curly brackets, but that curly brackets will be replaced by the name or by the value of my variable, my name, which is Carlos Terán. Okay, let's do one more example using the format function. For example, in this one right here, create a variable called name and age, store a value for each variable. For each variable, is misspelling there. Then print the sentence, my name is the name and I am the age years old. Well, my name, I'm gonna define the value for that variable. I'm gonna do my name. The age is gonna be an integer value. I'm gonna do 34, 32. And here, I'm gonna give you a few minutes to complete the last line. So what you need to print, what we need to print is, my name is, it will be substituted by our name, and I am the age years old. So this is what our program should print. So I will give you a few seconds to complete it. We can, and then I can complete it on my end, and you can check what you did with your result. The idea, keep it in mind that the idea is to use the format function. That's what I want you to use, the format function, okay? The format function. Okay, let me, what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna copy the sentence that we want to print, okay? This is what we want to print. So remember that I mentioned that the curly brackets is the syntax that we will use to replace whatever value we want to print with the format function. So I want to print, actually, my name is, I'm going to replace this second name word by the curly brackets because I want to do my name there. And I am the age. So here I want to do the age, right? So this is the sentence. This is my sentence. And now I will do, and this is the syntax for the format function. That format, and now I will do the name, which is the name of the variable, followed by the age. Okay, so this is the syntax. So once you print this line in the first part right here, those curly brackets will be replaced by the value of the name variable, which is Carlos, you see there. And the second one will be replaced by the age. So I'm gonna run it. And if you see, this one was replaced, right? The curly brackets and then the curly brackets. There you go. Does it work for you? Perfect. So that's the way that we do format, and I do work a lot with this format function. That's why I bring it here for you today, because I use it a lot. Well, the 3.2.4, we are going to name a placeholder. We are going to create an instructor variable. We will store the name of the instructor, and the year store an integer value with the year of this workshop. And we are going to use the print functions with the format functions to print information. So let's do instructor equals to, this is a string. We're gonna do Carlos. And the year, I'm gonna do 2025. And then this workshop is led by the instructor in the year. So one more time, let me take this out. I wanna do it from scratch. So what I want to print is this part right here, right? So this workshop is led by curly brackets. I will leave it blank in curly brackets. Then outside the quotes, that format, the first variable name, which is instructor, and the second variable name, which is the year. I'm gonna run it. And then we have this workshop is led by the instructor in Socia year. So this is the utilization of the format function. Now, when we are working with numerical values, the format function has the property that you can establish a floating point. So how many decimal points you want to print for a decimal value. So now, what we have here is we have print value. So remember that before we were working with the curly brackets empty, right? We just have the curly brackets. If I leave it with the curly brackets, it will print the whole decimal numbers that we have in our variable. Our variable is pi, which is 3.14159. But we can actually define how many decimal points we want to print. How do we do that? In order to do that, this is the syntax that we need. In this case, what I'm telling to my code is, okay, I want to print 2 decimal values, which are floating points. Okay, those are the floating points, and 2 decimal value after the decimal point. I want to print it. And in this case, I'm just printing 3.14, right? Because I'm just asking to print 2 decimal values. So that is how it works with the decimal points. So for example, if I want to print, let's say that I have to have a row value 5.857. Let's say that I do have these values right here, the row value, and I will do n. The row value is the curly brackets, the columns, that I will print 3 decimal points instead of 2. And here I will do row, right? Because I will print first the pi value and the row value. I'm gonna run it. Now the p-value is printed with 2 decimal points, but the row value is printed with 3 decimal points, okay? So you can set up how many decimal points you want to print when you are working with numerical values or floating points values. So let's move to the if-else statement. How do we implement if-else statements? So this problem says complete the code below so that if we have a numerical values, if num, this value is positive, we are going to print positive number. Otherwise, it should print negative number, okay? So Python works with English syntax language, let's say that way. For example, if else is else for the otherwise option. Something that we have to keep in mind when we're working with Python is the indentation. The indentation is something that we have to keep in mind, and I will show you what I mean by that. So we have if, right? If space, I'm not going to complete it by the generative with the problem that that is the next workshop, is about how we can utilize generative AI to complete the code. But here, the idea is to complete the code from scratch. So if the num value is greater than 0, then we are going to do something. But when you define a control statement in Python, you need to end with a columns. Okay, you need to end with a columns every time that you define a control statement. And when I say a control statement, a if, a else statement, even a loops, while, for loops, all the things need to end with semicolons. So the problem says that if the number is greater than 0, we are going to print positive number. So we want to print this value right here, positive number. Else, and this is what I'm talking about indentation. I need to follow the same line. If this condition satisfied, I will print it. Else is a control statement that means that I need to end it with a semicolon, print negative number. Negative number, okay? So if I run it, it will print negative number because num is equal to negative 45. Now, when I'm talking about the indentation, if I do this, I will have a problem. I will have a problem because the syntax in Python say, hey, well, we have if, which is the statement, but what is inside the if statement? Then the control flows, you have a print function right here, which is not inside any of those control statement. So that's why we need to, if I run it, I will have a problem. And it's an indentation error. You see here an indentation error. So this print statement should be aligned, right? Or inside, at least inside the if statement, and then it will work. Okay, yeah, it will work. So let's do with this part right here, age 15, the same thing. If age is greater or equal than 18, the columns, we are going to print, you are eligible to vote. Else, keep in mind the indentation, the columns, else you are not, let's print to vote. Let's run it. And it worked, right? So this is the when we're working with three variables, and we want to see which of those is greater or equal than. So we can use a sequence of if statement. If all three variables are equal, print all numbers are equal. Otherwise, print non all numbers are equal. Well, actually we can solve these problems just with one if statement. And this is if X is equal to Y. To compare a string or to compare variable with others, you need to do the equal C, the semicolons. Again, this is a control statement. And here, if those three values are the same, we are going to print they are all numbers are equal. That is what we have to print here. All number equals, else columns are gonna print none all numbers are equal. Okay, print it, not all numbers are equal. If I change it by this one by 15, all numbers are equal. Okay, that's it, if else statement. So this is one more example with the if else statement. I think that you are right now you're able to do that with the previous example. So I'm going to skip it and I'm going to jump to show you how to work with the elif. Elif is when we want to verify more than one condition. Okay, so with the elif in these problems, say for multiple conditions for a given score, you must provide a corresponding letter. So we will do A if the given score is from 100 to 90, B from 89 to 80, C from 99 to 70, and so on. So the first things that we are going to do is define a score variable. And let's do, I don't know, 76. And let's start defining the first statement. If the score value is greater than 90, well, let's do greater than or equal. Let's include the 90. Then we are going to print A. Now we are going to use the elif statement. This is a new statement. Elif score is greater or equal than, let's do 80. We are going to print B, right? Elif a score is greater or equal than 70, we are going to do print C, the C value. Elif score is greater or equal than 60, is going to be a D, print a D. And now we are going to do else print F. Okay. So in this case, 76. 76 is a C. If we change it by 95, it will be A. We change it by 68, it will be a F. Okay, so this is when you have more than one condition or the rule that you are defining has more than one condition. So you can define it this way using the elif, which is also a control statement. Okay. This one is these problems can be solved by I'm going to take a few more minutes. It's already 4:28. Anyways, we are recording the lecture, so if you need to go, that's fine, and you can then go through the lecture and
Okay, we
review.
have a survey. I gonna show the survey now. Department breakdown. Okay. Can you see the survey?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm gonna wait a few minutes that the participants complete the survey, and then I can continue to complete the notebook. Well, I think I can continue. Let's continue to work. This is just the last part, and then we have the pandas. It will take me maybe 10 more minutes and to complete the whole Jupyter notebook. Okay, so let me continue here. You are developing a programs to determine if a person is allowed to drive. The program should check two conditions. The age requirement, which is a person must be 18 years old, 18 years old or older to be eligible for driving. And the license requirement the license requirements, even if they are old enough, they must have a valid driving license to drive. So based on the response, the print, we have to print you can drive if the person is 18 or older and have a valid license. So here we have a double condition. If the person is 18 or older and have a valid license. You need a license to drive if the person is 18 or older but does not have a valid license and you are too young to drive. So let's create a control statement, a workflow to make this possible, to work on this. So the first things that we have to do is let's create two two variables. In this case, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to prompt to the user to type the variable. So in this case, I'm defining an age. So I'm gonna do input, and I will ask to the user to provide the name. So let's do please provide your name, okay? So this is an input. Whatever you do in the input, that will be a string, okay? That will be a string. If we do input, which is a function, this input function is asking to the user to type the a value, but that value is gonna be a string. Because that's gonna be a string, we need to do int and convert that string into a numerical value. In this case, we want to convert that string into an integer. That's why we have an int value in front of the input function, okay? So now let's do the same. Let's ask the license. For the license, we are gonna do input and let's ask, do you have a valid license? So you can answer yes or not. Yes or not. Okay. So let me show you what this code is doing so far. What I'm doing here, if you run it, this is what I was talking about. It will prompt to the user to type not the name, sorry, the age. The age. Let me stop it. Let me run it again. Now, please provide your age. I'm gonna do 20, for example. And then do you have a valid license? We can do yes or no. That is what our code is doing so far. But we need to identify if you can drive or not. So first, the first condition says if the person is 18 or older and has a valid license, we want to print you can drive. So if the person age is greater or equal than 18, because could be older. Now, here, what I'm gonna do is, this is what we call nested statements. Nested statements. So it's a if statement inside another one. So if the license is equal to yes, the columns, we want to print you can drive. You can drive. Else, the columns wants to print. The second says, if you don't have a valid license, you need a license to drive. Right? Now, the other condition, if you don't satisfy the condition that your age is greater or equal than 18, then if you see how I'm aligning those conditions. So these are inside, right? And this is the indentation. Else, we want to print, and in here, I want to do you are too young to drive. Run it. The age, let's say, is 16, for example. Or I don't have it. You are too young to drive, so it jumps to this one right here. So that is the code. And it's working. So now let's work with the pandas. I think that this is one most interested part right here in this, I think so, in the workshop. Let's work with the pandas. With the pandas, you can define a data frame. And the data frame is a data structure that helps us to manipulate data, to clean the data, to find statistical information on our data set. And all the things is pretty useful for data analysis. Well, in order to work with pandas, we need to import this package, the pandas package. This panda package, and you can name it. This is the object, and this is the object that you will be using to use any function from this library. And by the way, you can name it if you want that object. If I can do Carlos, then I can keep using Carlos instead of PD. But what happened is that if you find any code out there in Python, the standard is that you use PD. When you see a PD object in a code, immediately you know that there is a pandas, is a pandas object. So let's keep it the PD, just to keep the standard name for the pandas. And the first things that we're gonna do is, let's see how we can create a pandas data frame from a dictionary. Okay, a dictionary is also a data structure that is a key pair, data structure. We will have a key. In this case, the keys will be the name of the column in our data frame. These are the keys, and these are key pair. It's a pair of key values. Sorry for that. Key values. These are the keys, and these are the values. Okay, it's a pair. These are the keys, and these are the values. So let's first define a dictionary. So let's name my dictionary. And the syntax of the dictionary is it should need be inside the curly brackets. And to make this easy, I'm just gonna copy this information and put it inside the dictionary. Okay, so this is gonna be my dictionary. So these are the keys, and these are the values, keys and values. So far I do have my dictionary right here. What I want to do is create a data frame from that dictionary. And by the way, you can create a data frame from a CSV file, as we did the last time in the previous workshop. You can create a data frame from a NumPy data structure as well. You know, there are different ways that you can initialize a data frame, but in this case, I'm just gonna use a dictionary to show you how you can initialize a data frame. So let's do df equals to PD. So this was what I was talking about. PD, why PD? Because I named that object from that library as a PD. If I do here, if I name it as a Carlos, then I do have to do Carlos here, that data frame, and my underscore dictionary, which is the dictionary right here, right? So this is what I was talking about the object or the name of your library. But by the standard, we use PD. Okay. So now let's print. We can do print df, and we can print the information of our data frame. So we create first a dictionary, and then we build a data frame from that dictionary. So we have 3 columns. The first column is glucose, blood pressure, and body mass index, right? We have that information. So that's one way that we can define or create a dictionary. So in the next cell, you will see some functions like the head, tail, columns, describe, and info. Those are operations that you can do over the on the data frame. What the head does, this operation, the head operation, it will print the first 5 rows. Let me do something. Because I don't want you to get confused with this part. I'm gonna create it. I just cut it. I'm gonna create a new cell and put it here. I'm gonna show you operation by operation what we are doing here. So we have the head. And if we print it, it will print the first 5 rows. If you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the first 5 rows. But actually you can define here the number of rows that you want to print. If you want to print 8, it will print the 8, which is in this case, the total number of rows that we have. So that is the head function. Now let's work with the tail. The tail functions will print the first 5, no, the first 5 last rows. I don't know if that makes sense. Let me put here. So here, the data frame tail will print the first last rows. If you see, we were printing from the 7 to 3, right? We were missing the 1 and the 0. So the head, I'm gonna take this out, will print it from the top to the first 5 elements from the top to the bottom, and the tail will print the first 5 elements from the bottom to the top. So that's tail and head for a data frame. The columns, this one right here, what the column does is print the column names of your data frames. The column names, we have the glucose, blood pressure, and BMI, okay? The column name. Describe information, describe that function, the describe function. What that function does, it will print the statistical information. If you run it, you will see the standard deviation, the mean, the maximum value, and the different quantiles that we have, right? The first quantiles, the second quantiles, and the third quantiles. So you will see that statistical information using the describe function in our data frame. And the info information will tell you the data type of those objects. In this case, those are integers, 64. And if you see, we don't have null values or non-values. So the info information is pretty helpful to identify if there is any non-value in your columns. Okay. So these are we'll use operations for in data frame. Now, here you can actually print one column, elements of one column of your data frame. So let's say that I want to print the BMI, the BMI information for the first one. If I run it, it will print only the column of the BMI, or you can do more than one column that you are interested in BMI. And let's do the glucose. I'm gonna run it. So here we have the information from the BMI. This is the first one, the first information that we're printing. And here is the second one, where we are printing 2 columns, BMI and glucose. So that means that you can, if you are interested in one particular column and you just want to analyze that particular column, you can do just print DF and the name of the columns that you are interested in. You can select or filter your data by columns as well. But also, you can filter the data set that you have by the name, by columns, but also by specific threshold on that columns. Like, for example, let's say that we're interested to look for those rows or patients where the glucose is less than a threshold, in this case, 116. So if you see, check the syntax. We have the data frame, and in the data frame, I do have the brackets, and I'm saying here that I'm actually interested in the glucose column, but for those ones where the value is less than 116. And in this case, is the same syntax, but with a blood pressure. Word, I'm gonna replace it. The value is gonna be 40. So here I'm gonna do 40. If I print it, I'm missing something here. I'm misspelling this one, glucose. Okay, so if you see sorry, I made a mistake here. It will print the rows where the glucose has this particular threshold, okay? It will print the rows where glucose has this particular threshold. So in this case, we have just two values that satisfy these conditions where the glucose is less than 116. So the glucose is 85 and 98. If we go up in our table, I'm gonna show you here, we have just glucose here, the glucose, not here, the glucose that is less than 116 is these two, only these two. So it will filter your data, the data frame, only for those rows that satisfy that condition, where the threshold is less than 100, or the glucose is less than 116, okay? So that's one way that we can filter our data. And in this case, where the blood pressure was equal to 40. So we have just one patient where the blood pressure is 40, and we would print it in here, okay? So that's one way that we can filter the information from using a data frame. Now, we can actually add a new column in the existing data frame. So in this case, remember that the name that we set up was DF. So here I'm gonna do H. That is gonna be the name for my new column. And here we can do the values for that column. So in this case, I'm doing, this is the value for the new column, which the new columns will be H. If we run it, you will see now that we have the glucose, the blood pressure, BMI, and age, and the age, okay? That's the way that we can add a new column in an existing data frame. So now, I'm just gonna do this part right here in order to do the problem 5.5. So if you want to access a particular location or a particular value of your data frames, we can do the iLoc. iLoc is index location. The way that works, remember that the data frame is actually a table, right? The two n's times n. It's a table. So we have a dimension, the number of rows and number of columns. So the first element identify the row, and the second one will identify the column. So in this case, what I'm saying is, in the first row and the first column and the first row, the first position, so here, in other words, this one right here, this position, this is the 0, 0. This is the 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, and so on. This one is the 1, 1, 0. This position is the 1, 0. This position is the 1, 1, 1, and so on. So what I'm doing here is in the index location 0, 0, so this one right here, I will set at that one as a NaN value. So none value. 0, 3. 0, 3 will be 0, 1, 2, 3. Here, I will set that as a NaN value. And the 2, 2. 0, 1, and 2. So 2, 2, this one right here, I will set up as a NaN value. So that is the iLoc. So that is if you want to manipulate or change a particular value in your data frame. If you see, this is what I was talking about. The 0, 0 have a NaN value. The 0, 3, the column with the 0, row, let me see. 0, 3, yeah, 0, 3, which is this one right here, and the 2, 2. This is the 2, 2, 0, 3, and 0, 0. So those are dance values. So that's the way that you can also manipulate or change a particular value in your data frame using the index location, ILOC. Now, I'm just giving you this example because we are going to use now that information to see how we can manipulate null values. So remember when you are working with machine learning or you are developing your machine learning system, one of the steps is the processing, the cleaning the data set, right? And one of the steps of cleaning the data is to treat or to work with the missing values or the NaND values in this case. In this example, we have 3 missing values. This one right here, and this another one. So how we can deal with missing values using data frame. So there are different approaches. I'm gonna show you 3 of those. Sometimes what the people does is just drop those rows that contains the missing values. Others do an imputation using the median or the mean, and others just impute that value using the closest values of that of the missing values. Well, the first part that we want to do, or the first thing, is to identify which column contains missing values, right? So here the syntax is as follows. We have the data frame, that columns, and this part right here is the one that is telling me which column has or have missing values. So this is the data frame. Is there any null value? If is there, provide any. So when do any is like in any columns or any rows in this part right here. And then print the name of the missing values and print the list. So if we run it, it says that the glucose has a missing value here. Yes, that's right. If you see, blood pressure was not listed because blood pressure doesn't have any missing values. BMI has a 1 missing value and the age has 1 missing value right here. So we can just run it here. And the second part, I'm just gonna do a copy of the data frame that is that we already have. I don't want to miss the original values. And this is the first method to fill the NaND values. This first method, what it does, it will complete the missing value with the nearest value. And I will show you, let's run it. And it complete, you see, let's go up here. If we have a NaND value here, what is the closest value to that NaND value is 85. So, and then it will complete it with the closest one, which is 85. It just copied the 85. And here we have NaND value. In this case, it will take the following one. We have 28.1, it will replace by that value. So we have 28.1 right here, if you can see. And this one was a missing value, 29, it will replace it by the 29. Okay, so that's the way, that's one method to complete to impute a missing values. But actually the ones that I used to do, I don't use that much. The ones that I used to do is with the mean value. I take the mean value of the column. So in the mean value, what it does is it will take the mean from these elements right here, and the computation of the mean will replace the NaND value. So we'll replace the NaND value. How that works? So here we have the name. So I'm gonna do column by column, and I just gonna do with one of the columns. So glucose, this one, the glucose is one of the columns that has a missing value. So I will do here. So I wanna compute or impute missing value for the glucose, fill non-missing values with the glucose columns, and I'm gonna compute or impute that value with the median. I'm gonna run it, and now the glucose is computed with the median, computed with the rest of the values, right? And it will compute it in here. And then you can do the same for the BMI and the age. It will compute the median. So the the following part right here is the drop NaN values. Sometimes when you have a lot of drop NaN values, imputing a value is not a good idea. It's better just to drop it. And in this case, is dropping the rows, or in other words, the samples that has those missing values. And in this case, we will have just these rows right here, these remaining rows. And we are just dropping the NaN values. The sort, you can actually sort your array by, for example, I'm gonna sort it by the age, I'm gonna print it, and now it is sorted by the age. If you see, it's sorted from the ascending, I did it false, so it's gonna be sorted in descending order from the largest to the smallest value. So this is the function, this function right here, sort value. This is the function that is helping me to order or reorder the samples on my data frame. Group by, so in the group by, let's say that I want to group by glucose. In this case, we don't have too much values repeated here. So maybe it will just print, and let's do age, just one value. But with this, what this does is it will group by glucose. So let's say that there is a group of patients with the same glucose, then I will group it by age and compute the mean of the age for that particular group of patients that has X value for the glucose, and I will compute the mean for that group of patients. And now, once you finish, right, working with cleaning your data set and all the things, and there is a way that you can save it as a CSV file. So you do df to CSV, and then here you can do the name that you want to set for that data frame, and then you can run it, and it will save it. Let me see. In the folder here, it will save it for you as a CSV file. Then you can download it and share it with somebody else. Okay, so but this is the way that you can save the data frame that you have cleaned. Okay, so this is the end of this introduction to Python. If you want me to share with you this solution, let me know. I can share the solution with you. I'm just saving it, and then you can practice on your end. If you have any question, you can let me know. By the way, I'm gonna share it with you. Let me share it with you so you can have the solution for this one. So there is the solution I'm sharing on the chat. You can see the solution or what we did here today. And that's everything for today. Thank you for attending this workshop, and this is a way that you can support, right, our work. So thanks for that.
I have a question about, is there a finite number of functions in Python? Do you know? Like 1,000, 2,000? I'm just curious.
Well, there is yeah, there's a bunch. I don't know exactly how many functions Python has, but per library it has a bunch of functions. Let me Python library. If you hear in the Python standard library, you can find,
Database, do they have a database of functions?
yes, exactly, like database of functions, exactly. I mean, let me see. So all of those are packages and each has his own function. Let me see, I'm trying to look for.
Well, this is a good resource here, the library, you know?
Yeah, let me share with you this link. This is the official the documentation. But yeah, there is a lot functions and nowadays a lot of people is building new packages that you will find more functions that you can just use it and you don't have, you know, to build from scratch a code. You can just use a function. But yes, the community in Python is growing a lot. It's growing a lot. And the people is always creating new packages with functions. So let me go with the specifically with the
So you're saying the packages are a combination of functions?
yes, the packages. Yes, when I talk about package, is for example the pandas. This one, the particular one that we were working here. Let me go.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I got it. I got it. I got
Yeah.
it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for example, this is a package or library. Sometimes the people call it as a package, others as a library. So in every package or every library, you will find a set of functions. Let me show you Pandas. So if we go to the official documentation, I want to look for getting started, user guide. Let me see, maybe it should be here. Yes, this one. So all of these things are functions from the Python pandas libraries. Merge and join. So you see all these part right here: merge order,
Right.
concat. So all of those are functions that we can use from that.
Okay, so this begs the question, how many packages are there? Thousands?
Yeah, I may say at least, I don't know thousands, but at least hundreds. And you know,
Hundreds.
there is package for web design, there is package for statistical packages, machine learning, deep learning,
Okay.
numerical analysis. I think at this point, I think that we can type, let's see, Python library for, is there any topic that you are interested in?
Well, we usually use it for mathematics, calculation, statistics, but what you got there?
Let's see, numerical analysis, for example.
Yeah.
So we have for numerical
Oh, I
analysis.
got it. Okay, so that's why statistical packages pull in all of those. So they import all of those right there.
Mhm.
Okay, I get it now. So each one of those uses different Python functions.
Exactly. Each
Hi,
package.
okay, got it,
Mhm.
got it.
But actually, there was also an algebraic package for math. Actually, I think that there was a package for algebraic algebraic expression. Python library. I think it was this one, SymPy. SymPy is a Python library for symbolic mathematics. It aims to become a full featured computer algebraic system. Yeah, this is what I was computer algebraic systems while keeping the code as simple as possible in order to comprehensive. So yes, there is a, the community is a lot, and these are packages that people have been implementing, developing, and the community also contribute into those packages, because all those packages are open source.
Right.
This is an example for a mathematical modeling, all the thing, a package for that.
Well, that just makes a lot of sense now. Because I keep seeing this like Matplotlib and Seaborn. So each one of those is a package that contains specific functions in Python,
There you
carry
go.
right?
Mhm. Exactly. Seaborn, and then Seaborn has its own functions. That's right.
I could learn. Okay, well, that's cool. Okay.
Yes, that's why, for example, if you do Seaborn, every time that we want to use those kind of package, we need to import Seaborn.
Why can't we just import them all? Can we import them all?
Yeah, we can import all in one cell. But you mean when you say imported
Yeah,
all?
that way sky's the limit on your functions. If you import them all like for like machine learning, for calculations, for deep learning, just insert them all. Can you do that, or do you can do that, right? And then your command will have combined functions.
Yes, that's right. You can import all the packages that you need. But yes, you have to import like one by one. And then you can, in your code, you can just call any function from that library.
Very nice. Wow, that's amazing.
Yes.
That is
For example, scikit-learn, which is for machine learning. So you can just import all those packages, and then you can use a particular function from the package. But yes, that's the way that we can utilize or use functions in Python, importing the package, and then each package has a set of functions.
so when you do that, right click and you see the drop down, those are the set of functions when that give you the options like you had. Let's see.
Yes, for example, let's say that is Sn that per plot. It is actually giving me like the option already. Per
Yeah,
plot.
okay, I got it. Okay, that's cool.
And per plot is a function that belongs to Seaborn. And I can use it with the data frame, right? And as you say, I'm able to use data frame because we imported the pandas library, right? So we can combine, as you said, we can combine those libraries. So I can run it. Well, sorry for that. I have to run this first. There you go. Now I can run it. And it will print the information.
Okay, so I think it's really important that we go and learn the functions, because like even in pandas, you had like all kinds of functions in the drop down list, like bit count and bit length and all that conjugate, right? So
Mhm.
those functions were just in this training. It just shows you that sky's the limit on, what output information you want, and we need to learn what those Python functions do to find out what we can actually do with our data.
Yes. And by the way, there are a lot of functions that I even don't know.
Right, yeah.
I don't know how all those functions works. But you know, thanks to the internet and thanks now to the generative AI and all those things, is much easier than before to find out how those functions work and the use of those functions, what is used for. But yes, there is a lot of what I do when I'm implementing my code. What I do is, you know, I just go on the browser and I type like, I need a functions that help me to, I don't know, let's say compute the mean. And, you know,
Right.
will give me like some options or alternative to compute the mean for a NumPy, for a pandas library, a pandas, a data frame, sorry. But yes, because there is a lot of bunch of functions. I think that the main important part is to understand the syntax, to identify how we can actually, if we are working with a data frame, how we can actually use that function with the given data frame. Because yes, there is a lot of package with a lot of functions. But yes,
This is great. Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
It's our pleasure. Any other question? So I think that this is everything for today. So thank you. It's already 5:15. I take more of the time that we're expecting. So sorry for that. But Maurice will be sharing, you know, this lecture with you all, so you can review it. And again, if you have any questions, you can send us an email, and we will be glad to answer your questions. So thank you one more time, and have a great weekend and a great spring break.